dear students, I'm Okram Kunjosing, and today I'm coming to you with a new lesson, a new short story from your 11th class. This is from your supplementary reader textbook. And the name of the story is The Man with the Scar. It's written by a very famous short story writer called Somerset Maugham. Before we go into the details of the text, let's know something about the author. The full name of the author is William Somerset Maugham. He was born on 25th of January 1874 in Paris, France. And he died on 16 December 1965 at Nice, the city of France. Here, the name of the city is Nice. It is spelled like N-I-C-E. Spelling the nice na kwenda pabada the main eco the pabadi cities the Nice na pai. He was the son of a solicitor at the British Embassy. His parents died when he was very young, and he was brought up by his uncle, a clergyman. He was educated at King's School, Canterbury, and Heidelberg University, Germany. He was a doctor by his educational qualifications. He took his medical training at St. Thomas Hospital, London, but though he was a qualified doctor, he never practiced. Actually, he was a well-known playwright, a novelist, and a short story writer. He was among the most popular writers of his era and reputedly the highest paid writer during the 1930s. He had written almost 24 plays, 19 novels, a large number of short stories, in addition to travel works and autobiographies. Short story. The lesson that we are going to read today is a short story. And a short story is a piece of fiction dealing with a single incident, material or spiritual, that can be read at one sitting, and it must sparkle or impress. It must have the unity of effect or impression. It should move in an even line from its exposition to its close. Somerset Maugham turned to short story writing very late in his career, when he had already earned quite a name as a novelist. When he took up to short story writing, two readily available models were there. One was Guy de Maupassant of France, and another was Anton Chekhov of Russia. These two were great exponents of short story writing. In the beginning, he seems to have been very much drawn to Anton Chekhov, but later in his career, he was more inclined towards Maupassant. One characteristic feature of Somerset Maugham's writing is realistic portrayal of life, keen observation of characters, and interesting plots coupled with beautiful, expressive languages, simple and lucid in style. All these qualities make him one of the greatest short story writers of the 20th century. Angang Samagra ko, punshi yam mun yeng ba short story imo tam jida ba characters my characters yam lightly hen ba yam na nunga hen ba adagi plots jata phaza ba twists and turns ba am yaw ba londa puda sa sin ba yam hai ba irai laina mayek seng haigan ba magi sigum styles na maza 20th century quite power short story writer amma oina miyam na launi ko. Now, having known something about the author, let's go to the text. A brief introduction of the story. What is the This is one of the most unforgettable stories in English literature. The story has been translated in many languages. It has become a classic. Yam satina ko bungam da yam tina nungsiba paruraga pa ba bipong kuti magi thamois da ne koks hanjan yeire le wari makang ne pitri lon mayam da translate tawgro ne ma a classic. Kogi mayam na yam tina phazaba wari macha mani hen launa gra wari makang ne. Warisimakti, the story is about a man who killed a young and beautiful wife simply because he loved her too intensely. Warisimakti ko, nupa makagna magi yamna nauriba lohongba kuidribi na hawaribi masamata pazabi nupi ma hat pagi wari ne. Hali zige gino. Nupa azu si doraba. Ada masiram dai matamzida masagi kagi napal ngak na masagi izat na malay na hingzariba nupa makagna masiraganda mai na pido topa nung koy honi atopa gamul lay minagini natragana masida matunda na pido wahoni se kan mangam deba adana masida tali na pido hato ngani sineba ko mas yamna koy nupa thokpa nupa jing khan wakhalam khang no self-respecting man can think of his wife marrying another man after his death, nor can he think of his wife suffering after his death. That's the reason why the protagonist, the hero of the story, the man with the scar, killed his wife. Here, in this story, Somerset Maugham just explores the theme of perception, curiosity, love, connection, loss, identity, and struggle. Perception gi matang da khalluba nama oirambana ma curiosity khangning bagi langtakna bagi kari normal bagi nungsi bagi amaga mari lena bagi mangza bagi identity gi issue lan tawna bagi wari mayam se mix up targa yawen ko sigi wari sita wari sida in the story you will find three narrators wari libami home thangnani. One is the writer himself who is narrating the story to the readers. Mayam da pariba readers in the wari ribanu pam thangnani. Secondly, you will have an unnamed narrator, an acquaintance of the writer who narrated the story of the man with the scar to the writer. Writers na ko the wari the lirni. Writers na liri wari zaman mamana bam no mangun the liram to ni pama khangna banu pamna. Mamai the dakle banu pazgi wari zaman liram to ni. Then thirdly, we have the man with the scar. Hosiki mamai the dakle banu pasi muk thorakaneba. Mana wari zing a sage writer the mamana badu liram to ni. So we will have three narrators in the story, and it's a very interesting story, narrated in a very dramatic way, which is characteristics of this writer. Sige writers tigi top style oriba. Am satina wari is dramatized over. Adugo wari khuli ni kawansa. Mi hum na lead ni. Writers na koi the lead ni. Writers ga khangna ba mi na mongon the lead ni. Hausin nu pa do da mamai the dark labor nu pa the man with the scar. What is the protagonist say heroes mana amuk writer gi mamana was lead ni. So now let's read the text. After reading the text part by part, I will explain to you it in simple English. And sometimes I will use Manipuri language, which is Meiteilon, for your convenience. And as English, the high gani the Meiteilon is because explain tarongen koi kudongsa na bugidamukta. Now I'll start reading the text. It was on account of the scar that I first noticed him, for it rained broad and red in a great crescent from his temple to his chin. It must have been due to a formidable wound, and I wondered whether this had been caused by a saber or by a fragment of a sail. It was unexpected on that round, fat, and a good-humored face. He had small and undistinguished features, and his expression was artless. His face went oddly with his corpulent body. He was a powerful man of more than common height. I never saw him in anything but a very shabby grey suit, a khaki shirt, and a battered sombrero. He was far from clean. In the lines that I have read to you, in the line, I'm absolutely. Sigi lines that this line is not found in your textbook provided by the Council of Manipur Education Council. In the original text, it's there. So, no original text and already sigi lines they miss out. I will just identify the line. I'll read it out. I'll give you the explanation, and you can omit it if you don't like it. Now, the writer says, it was on account of the scar that I first noticed him, for it rained broad and red in a great crescent from his temple to his chin. Now here, the author is talking about a man with a big scar on his face. Scar is the hardened skin after an injury. The man is talking about a man with a big scar on his face. The writer says that he first took notice of the man because of his scar. The scar was very big. It was very unique. It ran in a crescent. Crescent means the curved sickle shape of a waxing or waning moon. Taramdagi thagina thamachagi thangol mong shape to the crescent koiko. Hosiki writers gi dark se mamon scars. It ran in a great crescent form. Thangol mong manong the thamachep mong the remember. From his temple to his chin. Temple is the flat part of either side of the head between the forehead and the ear. This swagi parts the labor saruk sibani forehead and the ear gi marak se labor temple is a swagi parts sibani go this part. So the scar ran from his temple to his chin. Nupasagi Kogi Magi temple Swais the Gi, Kumitel Swai Chairung Hypergar, Swais the Gina Kadang Bau the Liba, dark Amakaniba. Although it was also very broad and red, dark to Yam Sungang, but Yam Choba dark Amakaniba. So the writer first took notice of the man because of the deep scar, big scar that was on his face, which ran from his temple to his chin in a great crescent form. It was broad and red in color. It must have been due to a formidable wound, and I wondered whether it had been caused by a saber or by a fragment of a sail. The writer thinks that the scar must have been caused by a formidable wound. Formidable means a very severe wound, a very serious wound. And the writer wondered, what might have caused the scar? And he imagines that it must have been caused by a saber or by the fragment of a sail. Saber has a very heavy cavalry sword with curved blade and a single cutting edge. Saber Tangol Tang Kana Kun Kana, not by the fragment of a sail. Sail means a bomb machet kumana, waiting Gadrana Kaleman. The writer imagines that the scar on the man's face must have been caused by a big sword, by a saber, or by the fragment of a sail of a bomb. It's because the scar was in a crescent form, and it was not a small scar, it was very big. It ran from his temple to his chin. That's why the writer wondered whether this scar must have been caused by a severe wound from a saber or by the piece of a bomb, fragment of a bomb. It was unexpected on that round, fat, and good-humored face. He had small and undistinguished features, and his expression was artless. The writer says that this man, the man with the scar, had a very, faith and good-humored face, cheerful face, indicating that he must be a very gentle and innocent man. He had small and undistinguished features, meaning that his eyes were small, his nose was small, his lips were small, nothing was big, nothing was extraordinary, except the scar. Mamit manaton machiman rasi lerega picture piga loi phajaiba dak tum tangli pharak ta na chawre magi se ko as line nama sir parakata. There's a line which is not in your Manipur Council textbook, but which is there, very much there in the original text. His face went oddly with his corpulent body. Mamai duga saban dugam chana deheba. His face went oddly with his corpulent. Corpulent means strong and thick. Masamu yam pai adu mamai duga chana deheba. The expression on his face was that of an innocent man, but he had a very well-built body. Masadi yam pai ba adu mamai du cham cham meba kang ba thaza deba chana deba. Adun ma sai writers na is his scar was not expecting. The writer did not expect that kind of scar on such an innocent face. Aduk chamba mamai du da aduk hathi ba da ma lenis thaza den hai. His face was different from his well-built body. His body suggested that he must be a very strong man. He was a powerful man of more than common height. He was taller than common people. He was a very strong man. I never saw him in anything but a very savvy grey suit. I never saw him in anything but a very savvy grey suit, a khaki shirt, and a battered sombrero. He was far from clean. Most of the time, the writer saw him wearing a savvy grey suit. Worn, savvy means worn and old. Amanba grey suit, amanba grey machugema, and a khaki shirt. Khaki is a yellowish brown in color. A cloth of yellowish brown. Khaki is yellow brown changba machu maknebo. Adugi put it a battered sombrero. Battered means damaged, and sombrero means a kind of hat, broad brimmed hat. Tupi segai bam upi khaki shirt amadli segai ba khongrao aman ba khongrao ma seli grey machugi, and he was far from clean. He looked very dirty because of his savvy dress. Dress to na mer ga masadu mot pa male ba ko. Sombrero hai se akogi sarna haigre, it's a broad brim straw hat. Simana adum ayam matamda sombrero ma khaki shirt ma aduga grey suit ma sel ga dum lay. He used to come into the Palace Hotel at Guatemala City every day at cocktail time and strolling lazily around the bar offered lottery tickets for sale. If this was the way he made his living, it must have been a poor one, for I never saw anybody buy, but now and then I saw him offered a drink. He never refused it. He threaded his way among the tables with a sort of rolling walk as though he were accustomed to traverse long distances on foot, paused at each table, and with a little smile mentioned the numbers he had for sale, and then, when no notice was taken of him, with the same smile he passed on. I think he was for the most part a trifle the worse for liquor. I think he was for the most part a trifle the worse for liquor. Now, I will explain to you what the writer is saying in these lines. He used to come into the Palace Hotel at Guatemala City every day at cocktail time, and strolling lazily around the bar, offered lottery tickets for sale. Guatemala City is the capital city of Guatemala, a country in Central America. Ang Guatemala City is in North America, South America, marak to the Gulf of Caribbean. North America, South America, marak to the labor. Akoigi kahitare akoy bada samud na question baleba machama kani. Guatemala City da adugi Guatemala hariba lamsigi capital ni Guatemala se. He would come. He had a habit of coming at a particular hotel called the Palace Hotel at Guatemala City every day at cocktail time. Cocktail means a kind of mixed drink, which people usually drink in the evening before taking their dinner. Sakcha drink the thakpa namidang man thakpa cocktail mixed drink and he used to sell lottery tickets by walking leisurely around the bar. Strolling means walking unhurriedly, slowly. Leisurely means without haste. Around the bar. Bar is a counter in a pub or restaurant where drinks are served. Hotel amada, restaurant amada, drink mogi thaknanaba yu kaki serve to bamdubuniko bars. Adudayda sum satlaga lottery ticket yu holeba sinupas. Mamay the dark lebanupaze. The man with a scar had a habit of coming to a particular hotel in Guatemala City. The name of the hotel is called Palace Hotel, and he used to sell lottery tickets by walking slowly around the bar. If this was the way he made his living, it must have been a poor one, for I never saw anyone buy, but now and then I saw him offer a drink, and he never refused it. The author thinks that if selling lottery tickets was the only way of earning his living, then the fellow must be a very poor one. It must be a very poor way of earning his livelihood. And he must be a very poor man because nobody bought tickets from him. Instead of buying tickets, they offered him a drink and he never refused it. Right as in Haibuko, Masinu Paznik lottery ticket, you will look at Maggie Hingnaba, Pesatan Boy Tardi, Madu am lied of a beam or a neighbor. Pesatana will be on parties, the beam company, my am lied of me or any Karikinodi, me can after among the ticket, late deba, ticket levy motomon, you will be the Mayamna, other Magis Hatirizu, Mongon offered to use a tucked up the talk to whatever amount of wine or drink he was offered, he used to drink it. He would love to enjoy it. He would love to drink it. He threaded his way among the tables with a sort of rolling walk, as though he were accustomed to traverse long distances on foot, paused at each table, and with a little smile mentioned the numbers he had for sale, and then, when no notice was taken of him, with the same smile he passed on. He threaded his way. Threaded his way means he picked up his way through the crowds. Among the tables, in the bar, in the restaurant, many people were sitting there on the tables, and he would just find his way among the tables with some sort of a rolling walk. Rolling walk is a kind of walking with a side-to-side movement, as though he was accustomed to traverse means walking, travel long distances on foot. He paused at each table. He would stop at every table, and with a little smile, he would mention the numbers that he had for sale, and then when no notice was taken of him, with the same smile, he passed on. Me kudingi table manak chang ramana lottery tickets lebi no ticket offer to do neba. Me kanamtan ticket lay do neba. Adusuno kadum chat kido neba ko. He picked up his way through the crowd with a kind of rolling walk. From the way he walked, it seems that he was accustomed to traveling long distances on foot. He would stop at each table, and with a smile mentioned the numbers he had for sale. Nobody would buy tickets from him. Nobody would pay any attention to him, and he just simply passed on with the same smile, sweet smile. I don't know what I think he was for the most part a trifle the worse for liquor. The writer thinks that he was a little seriously affected by drink. Trifle means a little. Worse for liquor means a little bit more affected by liquor. You yam thakpadagi masaje patraba krasokselaba mi mali. Hain writers hairiko. Now, to continue the story. I was standing at the bar one evening, my foot on the rail with an acquaintance. They make a very good dry martini at the Palace Hotel in Guatemala City. This is a line which you will not find in your text, but which is very much there in the original text. When the man with his car came off. So I'll read it this way. I was standing at the bar one evening, my foot on the rail with an acquaintance, when the man with his car came off. I shook my head as for the 20th time since my arrival. He held out for my inspection of his lottery tickets. But my companion nodded affably. Quite a general. How's life? Not so bad. Business is none too good, but it might be worse. What will you have, General? A brandy. He tossed it down and put the glass back on the bar. He nodded to my acquaintance. Gracias, hasta luego. These are the words in Spanish, which is not found in your textbook. Then he turned away and offered the tickets to the men who were standing next to us. Now I'll just explain them in different lines. I was standing at the bar one evening, my foot on the rail with an acquaintance. Rail, the fence of iron rods. With an acquaintance. Acquaintance is a person whom one knows slightly but not a close friend. When the man with his car came off. I say, one evening, one evening when the writer was standing at the bar with his foot on the rail or the fence of iron rods, there was someone whom the writer knew, but who was not his close friend, just an acquaintance. They were there in the bar to have a drink. They wanted to drink just martini. Martini is a cocktail made of gin or vodka and dry vermouth. Martini na khangnaba you mix makhalam khaniko adu thakken tawbani moise sigi martini this was a specialty of the Guatemala City ki Palace Hotel ki specialty ni adu thakken leirambani ba makhong na rail thangkalaga rail ase akoi gi hotel gi side ta kai da leiba yochai duni ko asang ba pareng sambal khana ba fencing wena ba thamadu aduna one evening the writer was at the bar with his foot on the rail or the fence of iron rods. There was someone whom the writer knew but not a very close friend. He was just an acquaintance. They were in the bar to have a drink, a special cocktail called martini, which was a specialty of the Palace Hotel. While the writer was standing there with his acquaintance, the man with his car came off. Mama nabaziga sakhang na paziga sumlari kanjda aziki mamai da dakle pasa lak paneb. I shook my head for the 20th time since my arrival. He held out for my inspection of his lottery tickets. The man with his car was asking the writer to inspect, to see the lottery tickets that he was selling. And the writer was not interested, but this man with his car was insisting. So the writer had to shake his head. Kulla kuma sura bane mana writer ze lak padige ticket sa tadi yang biu da hanjan pal ticket on jalak padige ba writer ze mak se no me ba my interest later ta ine ba. But my companion nodded affably. But my friend, my companion, the man who was standing with me, I mean the writer's friend, magi companion duna writer companion duna madi kogi yamna in a friendly way. Affably means polite in a friendly manner da mak to know me ba ko. Aduga manas mahereba. Quietal, general, how is life? Quietal is a Spanish word and it means, how are you, general? Howziki mamai da dakle banupa sa. Writers ki khangnari banupa. Atopa nupa second narrators na mangona general and kaweba. Adu hangeba. General kamdori ke. General, how are you? How's life? Not so bad. The man with his car replied, not so bad. Business is none too good, but it might be worse. What will you have? What will you have, General? A brandy, he replied. He tossed it down and put the glass back on the bar. He nodded to my acquaintance and he said, Gracias, hasta luego, which is not found in your text. Now, when the writer's companion asked the man with the scar how his life was and how was he doing, the man with the scar replied that his life was not so good. He further said that business was none the better either. It might be getting worse. And then he asked, addressing the man as general, he asked what he would have, what drink he would have. Now the fellow replied that he would like to have a brandy. The drink was offered to him, and he drank it, and put the glass back on the bar. And then he gave a signal to the writer's companion, indicating goodbye. Howzim ko maitelo nam hai ke bako. Mamai da dak leben the pas na khome bako. Punchi si mong kya ta da business so dum mong ta de he na phalak ta babu yai. Mamai da dak leben the pas na amuk su hai re bako. Asa khoi ke no sna hangu bane. Writer gi ma khangna bun pas na hangu bane ba. Kari brand thak sige na brandy thake na re. Brandy do offer tawre thak chala cha law na. He tossed it down means he drank it down. Chalo thak sen gre glass to bar thaname. Adagi di mana writer gi let me na bun pas no me adu harame gracias. Hasta luego. This part no ina kind of the text the ko. Gracias means thanks. Spanish way ni. Hasta luego. Hasta luego means goodbye. Hasta means until. Luego means then. Until then means let's have a bye for today. Goodbye for today. Then he turned away and offered tickets to the man who was standing next to us. Then the man with the scar turned away from the writer and his companion and went to the other fellows who were standing next to them, asking them to buy his tickets. Mo ani writers ga mamana bziga thado maga atopa mi da wa ticket laibiyo na yon biyo na laibiyo na hang chat kremas. Who is your friend? I asked. That's a terrific scar on his face. It doesn't add to his beauty, does it? He's an exile from Nicaragua. He is a ruffian, of course, and a bandit, but not a bad fellow. I give him a few pesos now and then. He was a revolutionary general, and if his ammunition had not given out, he would have upset the government and be Minister of War now instead of selling lottery tickets in Guatemala. Now, when the man with the scar had gone away, Machat Karkanda, the writer asked his companion, "Who is your friend?" He was referring to the man with the scar. And the writer said that that's a terrific scar on his face. Terrific means of great size, amount, or intensity. There's a big scar on his face. Now, the writer's companion replies, "It doesn't add to his beauty, does it?" The writer's friend, his companion, replied that the scar did not add to the physical beauty, to the charm of the man with the scar. And he says that he is an exile from Nicaragua. Exile means a person who has been barred from one's own country, who has been driven out of one's own country, typically for political or punitive reasons. He is an exile from Nicaragua. Nicaragua de tantorok no pan. Mamagi dax na magi phazavadi hengaran deko. Hengaran brene. Mas Nicaragua de tantorok no pan. He is a ruffian. Ruffian means a very violent person, especially one involved in crimes. He is a criminal, a very serious criminal. He is a ruffian, and of course a bandit. Bandit means a robber or an outlaw. But not a bad fellow. I give him a few pesos now and then. Pesos is a basic monetary unit for several Latin American countries. South America, Latin American countries in the Chatnaba Pesanic. The writer's companion replied that the man with the scar was a very charming fellow, very handsome fellow, and the scar did not add to his beauty. Then he said that the man was a person expelled from Nicaragua. He was a very violent man, a robber, and an outlaw of some kind, but the writer's friend added that he was not a bad man. Then he also said that sometimes he gave a few pesos to the man with the scar. Then he continues He was a revolutionary general, and if his ammunition had not given out, he would have upset the government and be a minister of war now instead of selling lottery tickets in Guatemala. He was a revolutionary general. Now here comes why, here is the explanation of why the writer's companion addressed the man with the scar as a general. He was a revolutionary general. Once he was a revolutionary leader, an underground leader. And he was fighting the government troops. And if his ammunition had not given out, ammunition means supply or quantity of bullets or cells. Then he would have upset the government. He would have changed the government and be a minister of war now instead of selling lottery tickets in Guatemala. Ngasi Guatemala sahada laga lottery ticket yawlaga punsi leli bu nupaza karigumba da magi nomai maru magi kuzukulai loi thomdraba mana matamdagi government to mathak maka onthoga new government form targa he would be a minister of war now. Siniko. So hauzik nokoina khange mamai da dak lebu nupaza kana no haise. Writers inge khangnari ba mai mana baznareba. He is a bandit, he is a ruffian. Once he was a revolutionary general, but not a bad fellow. He was not a bad fellow. He was a revolutionary leader. And he is from Nicaragua, not from Guatemala. He has been exiled from his country. Once he was fighting the government troops. Unfortunately, the supply of his ammunition had given out, had ended, and he was arrested. If that did not happen, if that had not happened, he would have changed the government. He would have challenged. He would have changed the government, and he would be in a government now, and he would be a minister of war instead of selling lottery tickets in Guatemala City in a very helpless way. I'm no pilot in Guatemala City. The lottery ticket you will no pass a minister or no pass. Now let's continue. They captured him along with his staff, such as it was, and they tried him by court-martial. Now, there are certain lines which is not in your textbook, but which is there very much in the original text. Such things are rather summary in those countries, you know. And he was sentenced to be shot at dawn. There's also another line. I guess he knew what was coming to him when he was caught. He spent the night in jail, and he and others, there were 5 of them together, passed the time playing poker. They used matches for chips. This line is also not in your text. He told me he had never had such a run of bad luck in his life. He never improved more than half a dozen times in the whole sitting, and no sooner did he buy a new stake than he lost it. When day broke and the soldiers came into the cell to fetch them for execution, he had lost more matches than reasonable men could use in a lifetime. Now, I'll explain them again. Okay, they captured him along with his staff, such as it was, and they tried him by court-martial. Such things are rather summary in those countries, you know, and he was sentenced to be shot at dawn. Court-martial means a judicial court for trying members of the armed services accused of offenses against military law. Maza pare, my mama no krapula pare, otherwise court-martial tore. The government forces captured the man with the scar and his friends. They were tried under military law, and they were sentenced to be shot dead the next morning. Moi bichar tore army ki court ki niyong gi matungina adu hayeng nongal po nomai ka hat ka dawne na warep tare ba ko. Such things are rather summary in those countries. Means in these Latin American countries, such things are summary. Such things are very common. I guess he knew what was coming to him when he was caught. The narrator says, the second narrator, means the writer's friend, the acquaintance, says that the man with the scar must be knowing what was going to happen to him when he was caught. He spent the night in jail. The pronunciation of jail is different. Jail, this is a French word. And he and the others, spelling is different, but it will be pronounced as jail. He spent the night in jail, and he and the others, there were 5 of them together, passed the time playing poker. The man with his car had 5 friends with him, and they were arrested by the government. They spent the night in the jail playing poker. Poker is a kind of card game. Jwars hanar lele ko. Ahing my poker hanar lele. Poker is hanar bazi the kongangsa. People don't, you see, use money. Pesasi na they use chips. Chip anam sineko. Chip is a small disc-shaped object used to represent money in gambling. Jwar sanabada sale game hota koi disc macha macha manba tongan tongan machugi sinabada bani chips haise ka. Adu numitugi moi sanabada they did not use chips. They use matches instead of chips. Mai khet oina sinai ba komoina kogi haziki chips to sinabe hota while playing poker. So he told me that he had never had such a run of bad luck in his life. He never improved more than half a dozen times in the whole sitting, and then no sooner did he buy a new stake than he lost it. Man haibada bako. Haibada means kogi mamai da dak lebo no pas na wari liram kanda kamai liram gebo was ki writers and companions da no miss the man yada ba daws ya roi bine. Ahing duma phamba da taru la kumba dimanga mamgadra atai di suka ka da bine jwars adom loi ba mang wine poker games. The writer's companion said that the man with his card narrated him how bad his luck was in the game that night. He did not win more than half a dozen times in the whole sitting. As soon as, no sooner did he buy a new stake, then he lost it. Stake is a pile of objects here for chips. Chips mapai do kambra. As my keto. Mana stake ama ni juara thana na ba posak among stake ama koi ba confirms that. Adumana ama ni mangani ama legani mangani. No sooner did he buy a new stake than he lost it. As soon as he bought a new stake, then he lost it. When day broke, when the morning came, and the soldiers came to the cell to fetch them for execution. For execution means for killing them. Nongale si paising laya hat na nabagita mo tamoy pubala eba. Adumatamduda he had lost more matches than a reasonable man could use in a lifetime. Kanagumba mi mana punsi supada sin na bayaba may ket chang again naman ahing the monkey. Ngasigiti ko. Si bawa tausi, hause ko na tawi sang taning sang siko. Hause ki nupasi na mamay da dak lebo nupasi makamay phagi bo no makanano. Ako dam khangning bam ka yaholi ne ko writers ki magi wari kulings da wari kulis da. Se mai dak tu na kamay lak tu no si makoy khangningi. Mai masak tu ga mamay du ga chana da masu kamay ta uno khalli ati ma general ne hairi ko sigum jam sate ne curiosity gi element ko sagali in a dramatic way da narrators sagali makha de koi next class ta akumu akoi akup marol makha ta details and khangmine sanga ngasi gi siwa ta I think you enjoyed the lesson.